Yesterday was the 9th of Av, traditionally the saddest day in Judaism. This year in Israel, however, felt different. I saw things happen on the Temple Mount yesterday that I have never seen before. It was actually kind of crazy. I'm Justin, and this is the Israel Guys. Welcome to the Israel Guys, where we believe that in a world of Jew hatred and anti-Israel propaganda, you should have a direct connection to the land and people of Israel. As you guys know, yesterday was the 9th of Av, the saddest day of the year here in Israel. Many tragedies befell the Jewish people on this day, including the destruction of both the first and second temples in Jerusalem. There were countless other tragedies, including the sin of the spies in the Bible, also just many expulsions of Jews throughout Europe, just countless tragedies that the people of Israel mourn on this day. It's always a day of sadness, very much mourning and sorrow inside of Israel. This year, however, felt different than it has in years past. I felt small signs of the redemption that I haven't seen before. Yes, it was still a day of mourning, but there was something, honestly, that was different this year, and I'm going to get into all of that. Specifically on the Temple Mount, I saw things that I have never seen before. Check this out. Yes, that is a video of Jews bowing down on the Temple Mount. While that's super exciting and amazing, it's also kind of sad that this is a crazy and unusual thing in our day and age. Like, the Jewish people finally returned to their God-given land after 2,000 years in exile, and they're not even allowed to pray at their holiest site. Literally the place of God's house, literally the place where God said he would put his name forever. I went up to Jerusalem yesterday with some friends, and of course we went on the Temple Mount, or Har HaBayit. For me, it's always super special and important to go up on the Temple Mount on the 9th of Av. I've been up on the Temple Mount countless times, many times in the past years that I've been here, and I have honestly never seen it like I saw it yesterday. The status quo was broken yesterday. The status quo on the Temple Mount for years has been Muslims. They can have full access to the Temple Mount. They go in any gates they want to. They essentially do whatever they want to up here. They sort of treat it like a state park or something. Just a place to go and sort of, hang out with family and friends and even play soccer on this holy place. Even if they do their prayers up there, which they do, sometimes they look like this. They're bowing down with their backsides to the Dome of the Rock that sits right above where the Holy of Holies stood in the Holy Temple. Yes, Muslims can pray there with no restrictions at all. No Muslim has ever been arrested for simply praying on the Temple Mount. Again, for Islam, this is traditionally the third holiest site. For Judaism, the number one holiest site. That's the status quo for Muslims. The status quo for Jews going up to the Temple Mount has been that they only have certain hours of the day. They can go up in very small, tight groups. They go through one gate. They're rushed around the mount with a police escort so they're not harassed by Muslims. And then they're quickly hurried off to make way for other groups coming up. And absolutely, under no circumstances ever are they allowed to pray. For a while, if you even so much as moved your lips, you could be escorted off of the Temple Mount. This 9th of Av, I saw something different. In the video I showed you earlier, dozens of Jewish men were falling on their faces and bowing down toward the Holy of Holies. I was with a Jewish group. They stopped to pray there at Solomon's portico, just going down the steps. They stopped to pray there. The police came up and was like, hey, move on. You guys need to move, make way for another group. One of the Jewish guys was like, hold on, we need to finish praying. the police literally just stood there and let these Jewish guys finish their prayers. For me, it felt absolutely historic. It felt like I was witnessing a historic moment inside of Israel on the Temple Mount. Unfortunately, it wasn't all this amazing. It wasn't all that pretty. After this, we're going to get into what happened afterwards in just 1 second. But first, Israel's valiant soldiers put everything on the line to defend God's people in the free world from evil. Many have come home with severe injuries that have changed their lives forever. Take Lieutenant Colonel Mayan Mullah, for example. While battling Hamas in Gaza, he was ambushed and struck by over 140 pieces of shrapnel. Mayan has already endured 7 surgeries and is now permanently disabled, unable to work or to be with his wife and young children as he rehabilitates. Think of Sa'ar Axelrod, a young father who was gravely wounded by a Hezbollah rocket. He suffered a skull fracture, brain injury, and broken bones. He remains in the hospital, unable to go home to his pregnant wife and their 10-month-old son, whom he may never be able to pick up again. These brave soldiers gave everything to protect our freedom. Now they need our help to support their families while they recover. The financial burden they face is immense. Please, guys, give generously at the link in the description below to provide critical support for food, housing, childcare, and more. Help the wounded warriors who sacrificed everything. Just click the link in the description below to donate today. Israel's National Security Minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, also went up on the Temple Mount yesterday, and with his visit, he sparked a ton of controversy, not only inside of Israel, but also in the international community. While he was up there, he said, quote, "We are here on Tisha B'Av at the Temple Mount to commemorate the destruction of the Holy Temple. As I said, our policy is to allow prayer." He added that he had visited the Temple Mount to pray for the, quote, "return of the hostages, the peace of the soldiers, and victory in the war." Now, what is so controversial about that? He's praying for the return of the hostages, and he's talking about just praying on the Temple Mount. As usual, unfortunately, the Prime Minister's office got very scared of what the international community would say about them breaking the status quo. They said this, quote, "It is the government and the Prime Minister who determine policy on the Temple Mount. There is no private policy of any minister, not the National Security Minister or any other minister on the Temple Mount. Thus it has been under all governments of Israel. This morning's incident on the Temple Mount deviated from the status quo. Israel's policy on the Temple Mount has not changed. This is how it has been, and this is how it will be." Other Israeli politicians and leaders, they put out similar statements condemning Ben-Gvir for this outrageous act that he did on the Temple Mount. It's very sad, honestly, that these Israeli politicians are doing this, that they're putting out these statements, but it all comes down to international pressure. If the world didn't care so much about the status quo on the Temple Mount, then these Israeli politicians would be stronger in regards to the Temple Mount. Unfortunately, according to JNS police, they did detain 40 Israelis who visited the site after waving Israeli flags, kneeling, or lying on the ground. 29 of them were warned, and 11 were detained for investigation. So at first, the police were letting some of them pray, which I saw, which was historic in itself. It was incredible that this did happen. But then probably after the Prime Minister's office put out the statement, they did arrest some of the offenders on the Temple Mount. A spokesman for Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas, he described Ben-Gvir's assent as a, quote, provocation, and he warned of violent consequences. He said, quote, "We demand that the U.S. administration intervene immediately to force the occupation government to stop these provocations against the holy religious sites, preserve the historical and legal status in the city of Jerusalem, and stop the aggression against Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip and the attacks in the West Bank if it wants to prevent the region from exploding in an uncontrollable manner. Unfortunately, it seems the U.S. administration listened to the Palestinian Authority. The State Department put out a statement. Antony Blinken said, quote, "The United States strongly opposes Israeli Minister of National Security Itamar Ben-Gvir's visit to the Haram al-Sharif Temple Mount on August 13th, which demonstrated blatant disregard for the historic status quo with respect to the holy sites in Jerusalem. These provocative actions only exacerbate tensions at a pivotal moment when all focus should be on the ongoing diplomatic efforts to achieve a ceasefire agreement and secure the release of all hostages and create the conditions for broader regional stability. We will look to the government of Israel to prevent similar incidents in the future. The United States reaffirms our commitment to the preservation of the historic status quo and will continue to oppose unilateral steps that are counterproductive to achieving peace and stability and undermine Israel's security." Historic status quo? Respect to the holy sites? Yes, we want respect to the holy sites. That is literally what the Jews are doing, showing the greatest amount of respect to the holy site. Guys, think about this logically for just 1 second. How do you show respect to a holy site? Do you show respect by playing soccer, or do you show respect to this holy site by praying literally at the #1 holy spot for you? This is really stupid and it's not logical at all. Why on earth do the Muslims and also the international community, why do they care so much about Jews praying on the Temple Mount? I know for sure this is a spiritual battle because it does not make any sense at all if you think about it logically. Hamas said the reason for the October 7th attack was because of the Temple Mount. They even called the attack the Al-Aqsa flood, the Al-Aqsa deluge. The reason they care so much is because they know deep down that the God of Israel is real, and that if Israel takes the Temple Mount, then the redemption of Israel would happen. And according to the Bible, it's not going to be pretty for the enemies of Israel. Guys, I believe that we need to be the voice of Joshua and Caleb in this generation. No, not everything is perfect in Israel, but good things are happening here in the land. God is moving and the people of Israel are uniting and they're turning to God like never before. I want to end the show on a positive note. Just check this out. This is thousands of people gathering at the Western Wall to pray last night. While massive threats are surrounding Israel, the people of Israel uniting at the Kotel, at the Western Wall to pray for protection. Guys, Isaiah 56:6-7 says, "Also the sons of the foreigner who join themselves to the Lord to serve him and to love the name of the Lord to be his servants. Everyone who keeps from defiling the Sabbath and holds fast my covenant, even them I will bring to my holy mountain and make them joyful in my house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and their sacrifices will be accepted on my altar, for my house shall be called a house of prayer for all nations." Guys, I can't help but think that these days, the days when the house of prayer will be made a house of prayer for all nations, the Temple Mount will be turned into a place of prayer for all the nations of the world when the temple will be rebuilt. Guys, don't forget to donate to help the widows of the brave IDF soldiers who've sacrificed so much. Just click the link in the description below to donate to that amazing cause. Let me know what you think in the comments section below about this topic, about whether you're a supporter of Israel or you support the rebuilding of the temple. As always, stop listening to the lies and propaganda and connect with the truth of what is happening in Israel.